This is Short Hammer, and it is the 24th of May, 2020, and this is Trading Zones. This past week was another interesting week where the Fed showed their ability to print money, and the market just showed its ability to be resilient regardless of news and regardless of data. So first up, we're looking at the MES. And if we take a peek at the MES, what we see is, look at these areas here, right across the top, these 2960s. Right here, we reversed at those areas, right? And if you see, and this is how I look at this. I'll get into levels in a few moments, but watch. We push up here, and we can't find bullish oxygen above. We can't push. We come back down, right? This is the buyers telling you that they don't see as much value to the upside, and the sellers have grabbed the wheel, and so people are getting out here. Go back down. Now, push back up, get back to this area. Right, this is like 38, and it pushes up into the 60s, and so we can't even get there. We go back down. Buyers try again, and what they're trying to do is pop this 2970 and give us a rise up here into the 3120s or higher. And that's what they're trying to do. But so far, they've been unable to do it. So even though you see this bullish action, when we've pushed up into the 60s, into the 70s, like trying to get through this area and get a little bit of extension, sellers have stepped in, and the buyers have said, hey, you know what? We don't see as much value to the upside. We're out here. And they tap out, and we go back down. So what can we expect? Usually, and this is courtesy of Tim over at BlackBox. He always used to say this, that the best way through a supply area or through resistance is to gap through it. So if they want us through this area, they're gonna gap us, and they're gonna make it clear to the sellers, back off. And that's when you see a level that's hard to break, the market usually lets it be known. The buyers let it be known to the sellers, back off. And that's when you start to see shorts covering, and we get like a wicked rally or a wicked squeeze to the upside. So we'll see if that plays out. I'm not saying that we're going to gap up or not gap up. I'm just saying watch this level, right? These upper 60s into the 70s, like right around those 80s area. That area is an area to watch where we can see a massive extension here. 100 points, maybe more on the futures or on the market. I mean, we could really see a squeeze if we can get through this level. If not, then we go back to the downside, and sellers eat a little bit as we go down. So let's widen this out, get our levels in. So widen this out, make this so super clear. To the upside, we've got 2970, 2994, 3028. Above that, 3064, 3118, 3156, 3180, then 3221. To the downside, we're just above the 2951, 2945, 2938. Below that, the 2914 area, where you'd seen quite a few reversals around that point. Then below that, the 2887, 2884, 2872, 2851. And this area here, the 2770s. So what I want to do real quick, right, is, and you can see at some of these points where you see reversals. What I want to do really quickly is, actually, no, I'm not gonna do that. I don't want to tie up too much time, because I really wanted to show you the lower time frame on the 5 minute, but I'm not gonna do that. I'll do that in a separate video. And so here we're looking at the Russell, and it's almost the same thing. It's hitting this head here, almost getting a concussion, trying to get through this area here. Here, you've seen attempts to get through that, and that we've pulled back down. So we'll see if it's successful now. Quite a few states are opening back up. There's momentum just around the opening back up. And I think the hesitancy on this push is people are fearful of another outbreak, but not just that. People are wondering, as these different states open up, restaurants are opening back up, and some are going through different phases to open back up. How motivated will consumers be to get back out there and be active as far as going into stores, going shopping, just sort of getting back to the typical consumer behavior that we saw before the coronavirus outbreak? So we'll see how that works. And the more people believe that, and as the Fed continues to pump money into the market, we could definitely see some movement to the upside here. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll see if the oxygen's too thin and the buyers don't see much value there right now and the sellers grab the wheel. So we'll see. So next up we have Amazon. Now Amazon was insane, in the words of Gwen Stefani, Banas. And there's just been just drastic movement on this. And so if you were watching the levels we were mentioning down here, above these 22s, it's 2250s here, we saw just the buyers squeezing. We hit our head here on our 23. Let me widen this out so we can see it. Right here is our 2407 area. Pull back to this trend line, little trend line here that I drew after that area held, to be honest. And we kind of rode that a little bit for a few days. And then we got through, back tested it, and buyer stepped back in and sort of squeezed it to the upside. Now we pull back to it here, and we'll see if they're able to see what you want to see. And this is what I want to see. If I'm bullish on this, right, and we're at all-time highs, what I would want to see is the buyers push us back above these tops here and give me separation above this area that we saw in the pre-market here, above this 25-24. And I want us to go. And some people may be buying here expecting a retest of the 2470s or higher. That's not a bad idea, bad plan. Pull back into the trend right below this level, these upper areas that we sort of pull back into, so they can see this area here as a buy zone potentially, and hop in with your stop being a few points below this, and looking for a rise, at least a retest of either these highs here, or push back through the test of the all-time high area here, that pre-market area here, to see if we can pop that intraday. So we'll see on Amazon. But these levels here that I have marked, 2450, 2474, below that, this 2407 area, then 2318, 2291, 2251. But take a peek at the structure, right? And look at the overall market strength. This past week, it was really interesting because there was almost like a seesaw effect of the goal was to push the market up. And so there would be a bid below tech while financials was selling. And then a different day, or the next day, there would be tech would be selling, and there would be a bid beneath the financials. So they're sort of, I wouldn't say rotating, but just going back and forth between tech and financials, just sort of feathering the market up a little bit. So I thought it was really interesting if you watch that. And my question on Amazon is, and this is the same question that we were asking about the futures. As the economy opens back up, states begin to open back up, will Amazon's sales go down? Will people buy less things on Amazon now that they can get back out there and purchase things from other retailers. So that's going to be interesting to see if there is a slight dip on Amazon, since they're so heavy in the online space. If there's a slight dip as people get back out there and start to purchase those goods sort of offline from brick and mortar. So we'll see. Next up is Netflix. And Netflix definitely had a few dips on the week. And our thesis on Netflix was that we thought Netflix had had an amazing run. And nothing against Netflix, because we all like Netflix. But our question was, as the economy opened back up, would there be a probability of more people being home to watch Netflix and more subscribers, or would there be a probability that there would be less? And what we thought was that there would be less. Like, if less people are home and more people are back to work, there are less people available to subscribe to Netflix. So we'll see if that plays out. If less people are viewing Netflix because they're getting back out into the economy, getting back to work. So we'll see how that works. But those things, I believe, will go hand in hand. How well people are getting back out there, getting back to work, getting back to their regular consumer behaviors, will impact Netflix's ability to be able to retain some of those subscribers that they gained headed into their earnings. So we'll see if they're able to retain a large enough percentage of that subscriber base. We'll see. And the question is Netflix profitable yet? No, probably not. But neither here nor there. But just watch this. The levels to the upside are 431, 439, 447. And if you look at this area here, if it pops to 459s, 456s, that could be interesting. To the downside, we have 418, 410, 405, this 394 area, 391, 384, then 370s. So 391, 394 areas is also interesting. But we'll see how this works out. Because if you look at this on Netflix, above it really was the 380s before it broke through. But above this, you saw the back test of this zone. It's an area we couldn't break for a while. We got above it, back test, and we're staying strong. So this is almost an area to itself, or a zone to itself, this upper portion here. And I would expect that when we get back down here at some point, I would watch to see if the buyers step in and try to push us back to the upside, just based on this behavior here. And based on that, this area that was previous supply should now become demand. So we'll see how we behave when we get back around those lower 390s. We'll have to see. Next up, NVIDIA has been insane, and all-time highs, of course. And this area that previously was a strong supply area, look what happens after we break through. We feather, strong back test here as far as this lower wick here into those 303s, and the buyer stepped in and just legged us through. Look at that, right into earnings. And then on earnings, we're sort of hovering around this area that we if you look at this, this is interesting, right? We tested this area before earnings, the 363s, and we had earnings here. We had a slight pullback. Buyers stepped back in, but they still couldn't pop the 363s. So for me, if I'm watching NVIDIA here, I would wait to see if we can get through these 363s, because this is multiple days of that being an area where the buyers just can't seem to get through. And there seems to be an agreement between the buyers and sellers that there's more value to the downside. So I'd watch to see if these 363s can pop and if the buyers can give us a run here. So that's what I'll be watching on NVIDIA if I were you. And if this holds up and you see a nice sell candle here, then this might be worth a scalp to the downside to see if the sellers can pop some of these levels. So to the downside, we have the 351. And the reason why it's these colors, because these lines aren't as, what's the word, solid, right? So I'd watch to the downside of 351, the 339, 325, 317, 313, 303 areas. 303 areas is actually a very interesting area to watch. And if we crack that, at some point we of course we'll have to wait to see how hard those sellers may drop us, maybe to this area here. And also watch here. Look at this candle structure all through here, right? I see keep saying here. Let me give you some specific numbers. The 313s, right up through the 325s. It's a pretty solid candle structure here. So we'll see if we at some point back test that. But I watch those 363s on NVIDIA to see if we can get a pop. And if we get a pop, we might see a nice little squeeze through that area. Next up, we have Microsoft, and as strong as the tech sector has been, the big boys, Microsoft hasn't popped the top yet. So I would keep an eye on Microsoft to see if it's just lagging, and eventually it makes this move. But watch this area here. Look at these tops, trying to get through here, and the buyers just can't seem to separate. You can even see this area back to here, right? The buyers just can't seem to separate and get to shake these sellers weighing this thing down. So we'll see. Watch this area right around these 187s. You want this area to pop, and then you want the buyers to squeeze this into the 191-ish, and then you want this entire thing to just rip. So we'll see if we get that. But obviously, the buyers don't see the value to the upside yet, because we have yet to get through those 187 squeeze just recently, right? So we want to see how that works out. But from where we currently are to the upside, watch the 185s and the 191s. And to the downside, the 183.70s were right on that. Then below that, the 182s. Below that, I have 180s in here, then the 176s, 174s. We'll see how this resolves itself. Interesting. You can almost see, back test of that area here, the gap, and then boom. Okay, cool on Microsoft. And Facebook's been insane. And so if we remember, Facebook did launch a Zoom competitor. They do have there's something else that they just launched. I don't remember off the top of my head. They just launched something else that was new, that was really really interesting. So Facebook, in light of what's going on with the coronavirus and the pandemic, they have really been active on the innovation side, and kudos to them. So we see this uptrend that we've been writing. Just the separation here has just been amazing. We were saying watch above the 210s, and with buying above the 210s, we saw the push through this area here. And once we pushed through, we saw a slight back test, but the buyers are off to the races on this bad boy. And these lines are light lines, 236s, 228s. We'll see if we pop those next week and squeeze. All-time highs. The air is supposed to be thin usually, but hey, what's funny is things that are strong usually get stronger and remain strong, and things that are weak usually get weaker. And look for buyers. And this is what's always, I think, almost counterintuitive, right? You would think that's when something is at these highs that people will be running away and saying, "Hey, you know what? Let me get out of this while it's up here." But what people see is they see that there is a momentum behind and motivation behind a specific ticker, and they get in and push because whatever the energy surrounding it is that's keeping it high, people want to ride this out because they feel like it could remain strong. And that's usually what happened when something makes an all-time high or a new 52-week high or whatever it may be. Usually it continues to make new highs until the buyers no longer see the value and they feel there's more value to the downside, then it'll roll over. So what you want to do on something like this is you play the pullbacks. So you want to see if we're going to pop the 236s, and then you can sort of ride that a little bit, but you want to see continued strength and increasing volume. That's what you want to see when something is sort of making all-time highs and pushing. So we'll see if this continues to the upside, but to the downside, we have this 228, which is a new area, light. Then you want to watch the 226s, the 219s, 218s, 216s, 214s, the 210s, long way above the 210s. We're still, in my opinion, slightly bullish, and this will change because now the buyers are and sellers are kind of finding new levels. But look here, and if we backtest the 222s, you want that area to hold, and you want the buyers to step in and squeeze this. So we'll see. But Facebook definitely very strong this past week. Next up is Intel. If you remember in our previous videos, we had this this zone here, or this channel here on Intel that we're waiting for Intel to get out of. And Intel did. It pushed out, and where the 62s have been an area where the sellers have stepped in and pushed us back to the downside. This side, it was a clear look at the strength of this candle. That's what you always want to look for, is a strong break, right? And it pushed through, and we test our zone, our line at 63.77, this demand supply area, and we pull back. We tested the top of the zone. Now, the way to play this is when something breaks above a zone, you wait for the back test. And usually you wait for the back test. And when it back tests that area, you want the buyers to step in. And what we're waiting for now is a break back above these highs, above the 63.77 and the squeeze into the 65s. And we can see this entire segment here, this 63.77 to the 69s, is a separate segment of its own that we would love. If you're bullish, you want to get up in here, because then you want to see this rise above these 63s, a rise up into at least these 65, 55 areas, and maybe higher up through here. But you want the buyers, you want this volume to increase, and you want to squeeze in a pop at the top here, this little area here. You want this to go back through here, and then you want to ride this up. So the immediate areas to the upside, we have 63.77, then 65.59, 66.38, 67.53. To the downside, we have 62.06, this 60.94 area. Below that, we have 58.85, 56.91, and 55.71. Next up, we have CMG, and at least had call levels on this. We back tested the teens, then we ran up. And if you watch this, let's see. This is so interesting. So it was around this area, I believe, that she mentioned the levels it can go to. And we had a nice push off of that, right? And you take profits as you go. Then we had a nice dip. And look at this candle structure here, right here. And the buyers stepped in. And this squeeze back to the upside. Look at this run that we're on. CMG is very strong right now. as things are opening back up. We have to see if it gets stronger, but they have done a great job on the delivery side, and we see that based on their earnings and their guidance. They've done a great job. And whether the one of their anchors and their strengths is Chipotle's are very near to universities. And even though it's almost as if they could predict it, they've worked very hard since they brought over I cannot remember the gentleman's name that used to be over Taco Bell. I think he was either it was Taco Bell or it was Yum Brands. But since he has come in, he has totally revolutionized the way that Chipotle does business. Totally. Amazing, amazing CEO. Forward thinking. And if you remember, I don't know if it was this earnings in February, but what he mentioned was that their stores were going to be, it's going to take longer to open up new stores because he wanted to heavily invest in making sure that each one had a drive-through. And he couldn't have predicted that there would be a pandemic or anything like that, but it's almost as if he was planning for the future in his vision as far as how to design the future stores and what he wanted to see and what he was expecting as far as growing the online delivery side for CMG. So interesting here, still remaining strong. To the downside, we have the 1019s, we have the 964s, 940s, 916s, 888s. To the upside, no ceilings. If you want those numbers as we continue to make all-time highs, you got to reach out to Elisa. Just send a little message, and we'll see what we can do to get those numbers to you. Pardon me, my son popped up. So we'll see, but definitely drop a line to Lisa, and she'll give you the levels that she has as far as sort of where this is going based on her pivots. Next up is Tesla, and if you look at Tesla, it basically just had what I would call a week of consolidation, and we'll see. Just look at this range; it's pretty tight. So I'd wait for an extension, one way or the other, to see if we're going to make an extension into the 860s and then a squeeze, or an extension down into the 780s. You see this trend line that I have from back in March. We'll see what happens with that. But the levels to watch on Tesla are the 857, the 937s, the 969s, the 785s, the downside, 713s, potentially, if it gets below here, the 651s. But you know what's interesting about Tesla, right? Some people, depending on why you'd buy a Tesla, let's say you bought a Tesla because over the lifetime of that of the vehicle, you felt that you'd save on gas. Well, right now, gas is really inexpensive. So could that be something that could be a potential headwind for Tesla, being that the price of gas is down? And yes, it's down temporarily, but consumers usually only think in the right now and what they can see. So that might be interesting as far as if you're thinking about the selling point for a Tesla. The price of gas could definitely be one of those things that are working against them right now. So that could be interesting as we see if that plays out at all. Shop insane. So if you look at these different structures, right? This area was back tested. We pushed above, back tested, and we're just going up. And what you see with Shop that I like is, so if you said that this structure here in and of itself was a zone. Look at these flare downs and tests of this zone, and each time the buyers pushed us right back up, and now we're above this candle structure here. So can we expect a flare down in a test of the 770s? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see if we get a test down all the way down here. But this thing is breaking out and it's just looking stronger and stronger. So we'll see how that shakes. But to the downside, we have 739. We had an alert set up here around the 780s to watch for a break of that to hop in. And we'll see if this continues to show strength. But the smart thing to do when you're in something like this is to scale out and lock profits, and don't expect that this gets to $900 without there being any pullbacks. So you like to ride these up, but try to get in on pullbacks at strong structural levels, and on the pushback ups, you do want to scale out, and then you can ride it with a percentage of your overall position, because you can always wait for a pullback later if it remains strong and re-enter. And what's interesting is that e-commerce should continue to get stronger. Just, I think a lot of companies right now are seeing the value of being strong online, and just counting on a brick and mortar strategy, especially in a post coronavirus world, just doesn't make sense for a lot of companies. And if you have the opportunity to move online, that is the thing to do. So that could be why we see some of that that increase in shop, where people finding just looking and finding more things online, more stores opening up online, more businesses opening up online. So that's interesting. For McDonald's, with they're definitely great on the drive-through and the delivery. So with the economy opening back up, we have to see if their foot traffic increases. So we'll see how McDonald's does. But we do have this little area here, the 191 by 196-ish. And we'll see if we can see strength up into there. Watching the 187, see if we get through here. We see a little bit of strength here and a push through. Last time we were up in that area, the buyers kind of rolled over here. It's sort of right into earnings. And we did have a nice little pullback here. And what we see is and look at this structure. Isn't this interesting? Where did the buyers step in? Right at this candle structure, where for a few days it was supply, and supply became demand. We see this, we're above, then strong test of that area. They step in, pushes back above. And so the question for someone may be like, well, would I just buy when it pushes into this area? You can. Some people do. It just depends on your strategy. But other people wait to see that does it hold, and you on this is all pre-market, it looks like. And so you saw this happen pre-market. Then when we opened, the buyers brought us up out of that area. And if you didn't want to buy then that's fine. You didn't have to buy then. And you see us push into this little structure here, and we got to push back down. And the buyers stepped in again and said, no, thou shalt not pass, and pushed us back up again. Had a Gundalf moment. And here we are. So we know that there's strength here, that the buyers do feel that there's more value to the upside down here around the 170s, and they pushed us back. And when we went back into this lower structure here, they gave us a strong push through back test, and now they're pushing us up to the next level. So that's interesting on McDonald's. So the levels you want to watch on McDonald's to the upside, 187, the 191 by 196, this channel here that we spent a bit of time in going back that we like. And above that, the 201s, then 206s. So the downside, we want to watch the 178s, the 171s, the 161s. Though what we've seen is that buyers are present around these 167s to 170s, lower 170s, 171. So we'll see if that continues to hold up if we do get a back test of that area. And if we see continued strength to the upside, we have to see how this plays out. Target. So retail has been getting hammered, as you expect, without people being able to get into those stores to buy. And let's see. So right now we see this structure here. Look at these multiple days of trying to get through here. And we're testing that structure right now. So the last time we tested this structure over here was a pullback on this day, and the buyer stepped in and pushed us back up. So we're testing this structure again here. We look a little bit more bearish. So what you want to see is, do the buyers push us back above the 118s? If so, because we are slightly below the trend line, but we'll see. Back above the 118s. If so, can we at least get a rise into this 119.70s, potentially up into the 121s? And from there, who knows? So we have to see if this area holds up and we get a nice little squeeze back up here into the 120s. That'll be nice. But the levels to the upside, you want to watch the 118, 118.30s, 121s, 122.40s, 124.30s. To the downside, the 114s, 110s, then the 107s. That's on target. ABBV off to the races, and we're kind of testing this structure here, trying to get up into there. So what you'd want to see is bullish candlestick formations above this, up into the 94s, then a potential squeeze into the 98s. You got to kind of be careful with these types of companies, bio companies, because they'll move on drug or trial information, and then they may have a rejection at some point from the FDA and they go back down. So you kind of want to catch these usually on pullbacks, and if they're going, you want to catch them where the momentum is really, really strong and you feel that it's going to squeeze and you can see more room to the upside and more levels. So I would be careful on ABBV. But watching this, you'd want a break above 92.94, 94.68, the 98.30s, and above that, the 101.25s. To the downside, you want to watch the 80. What we're seeing here, the 88.79s, 84.38s, and 81.66s. You can see all these different areas where there's candle structure that you want to see held. So we'll see if we can continue to rise here on ABBV. Next up, REGN. We have this channel that we spent some time in. And what we were mentioning is that above this, we have room separating. So what we want from REGN is for it to poop or get off the pot. If you're bullish, you want it to stay above the channel, and you want it to pop the 591s and for us to get a squeeze. If you're bearish, you want this area to hold up and for us to pull back inside the channel and kind of matriculate back to the downside here into this this 505 area. So to the upside, we have 591.606. Then above that, we got clear skies. Below this, we have we're right around the 569 area, and below that, we have the 543s, 525s, then 505s. So we'll see how all this shakes out with REGN. But we are at the top of the channel, and we'll see if we pull back in and we see a little bit of sell side. Goldman Sachs, we are below this channel that we mentioned in a few previous videos, the 189 by 207s. With things opening back up, will financials get strong again? I think it's interesting. There's sort of two views. There are a few people that are saying that we're entering a long recession or pullback, and coronavirus or no coronavirus, we've had a strong, almost a decade bull run where things have really been good. Are we due for a pullback? Yes. So we'll see how this plays out as far as for the banks. But to the upside, you want us to get up into the 189s, and you want to squeeze to the 197s, to the 207s. You want this to be strong up through here. The last push up into the channel was unsuccessful. The buyers couldn't squeeze. So we want to see what happens this time, because here we pull down, and this could almost be a challenge in and of itself, right? Look how we've moved back and forth in this area, and the sellers could not get a hold to push this lower. We see this candle structure here that we ran into and caught a bid and a push back up. So we'll see if we can catch a little bit more strength as the economy opens back up and a squeeze back into the upper 180s. And if we get into this channel, if we can see a little bit of bullish candlestick formation to the upside here on Goldman Sachs. But neither bullish or bearish, just playing the levels. If we drop to these lower levels, I'll wait to see if the buyers step in. If the buyers don't step in, I would want to see selling below this little flare down and then sort of ride it down to the 140s. That's what I want to see if I'm bearish. I wouldn't necessarily look to, open a position here. Some people might, but I look for the last swing low wave on the candle structure. What I'd be looking for. And last up is the SPY. And so what we mentioned on the SPY was that it's been in the channel, and we're just above that channel, but we have not been able to separate. Like it's just been a struggle to separate. So what you want to see is separation. So if we pull back in here, maybe we retest the bottom of this channel. If we stay above and we catch a bid, then we're going to watch the 302s, 307s, and potentially 315s coming up. And if we head back down, we're right above the 294 area. Then we're going to look at the 290s, the 280s, and below that, the 270s. Did I miss it? I missed the 286, the 294. It's okay, right in there. So we'll see where the SPY goes. If you like this video, please don't hesitate to tap the like button and continue to send your DMs and your questions. We will continue to respond to those. And feel free to go to our Power of Pivots YouTube channel and subscribe. We can look forward to receiving more videos from me similar to this one. And I think I'm going to start putting out a little bit different content because people are asking me a lot about setups and entries and things of that nature. So I'm going to be doing that. And also content from Elisa, as she shows you how she utilizes her Power of Pivot strategy to find great entries and exits, not only intraday, but pre-market and also swing plays. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful week of trading and remain safe.